Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast. Marketing in a highly regulated industry like pharma can be tough. In the contract manufacturing space, where the services of one CDMO looks very similar to another, how can suppliers stand out? And what's the most effective way of targeting customers at just the right point in their drug development process? In this interview, I picked the brains of Elliott Berger to get his views on what it takes to do great marketing in this industry. We talk about his career from management consulting to marketing consumer pregnancy products at Johnson & Johnson, to his experience in leading marketing at Catalent, and what he's learned along the way about media, content, and the best way to deal with lawyers. I hope you enjoy the interview. Elliott, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. It's great to speak to someone who has operated at the very top of marketing in contract manufacturing, as well as wider experience in pharma, of course. And there's clearly lots we can talk about. But to start off with, would you mind just telling us a bit about yourself, please, Elliott? Interested to hear what you're doing now and your background.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. So yeah, to your point, I spent quite a long time as a chief marketing officer at Catalent, where we had one of the most active and aggressive marketing programs in this industry. I've been there for 12 years and change, almost from the very beginning when it rolled out of Cardinal Health and through the heady days of the initial public offering on the New York Stock Exchange, and then as a public company in the S&P 500, and then through the heyday of COVID and disruptions. Prior, I learned my marketing at Johnson & Johnson. I was there for a large number of years on media and digital and innovation and a lot of very big classic kind of consumer health brands, Johnson's Baby and a little bit of Band-Aid, skincare and all that.
Elliott, that's where you were in the VP of Innovation role when you were at J&J.
Yeah, first I was on the big Johnson's Baby business, which is, over $2 billion and 113 markets over 100 years. And we did a lot of innovation projects after that as well, both on marketing innovation and media innovation, as well as product innovation. I like to think, these kinds of consumer health companies is where you learn marketing and you spend literally hundreds of millions of dollars, work with the best talent and the best agencies and the best creatives and the biggest media companies. You learn a lot more. So then I was working to bring that into the CDMO space where, if you do B2B marketing all your life, you don't get the budget and the experimentation and almost never to kind of be able to do that stuff.
What was that like for you then, going from, because when you were at J&J, it was more product innovation, I had marketing as part of it, but to going from that into leading marketing for Catalent, what was that transition like for you?
Well, it's interesting. Firstly, I say marketing is marketing and marketing strategy. So I spent a lot of time marketing to pregnant women, which is kind of a distinct audience, and new mothers. And then I'd say pharmaceutical executives are no less painful, no less difficult to find. So I think the biggest thing is you need to adjust from a more emotional, large scale, a more emotional, kind of impulse purchase or small purchase where people make up their minds about the brand, the thing themselves and on the shelf in seconds versus you trying to buy something that's multiple stakeholders, multiple influencers, large process, large spending over a period of time. And I was just trying to bring on the pizzazz and the creativity and kind of the new age channel stuff that you can do on the B2C side over to the B2B side, particularly creative and media approaches that are harder over here.
Which is a transition, I think, that many who come from the B2C side into the complexity of B2B pharma crash and burn a lot of the time when people try to make that transition. What was it that you found really worked as you made that move?
Well, yeah, that is a difficult transition. I've hired marketers from the pharma space who just spend their lives marketing to doctors and patients that couldn't adjust really. and B2C marketers who couldn't adjust, and then some made this transition.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you have to be very strategic, right? I started my career actually as a strategy consultant for Ernst & Young. So I did as much strategy and strategic planning at Ernst & Young, at J&J, and at Catalent as I did marketing. So first you have to be very, very clear on who your audience is, where they are, what they're doing. And then you have to be very cognizant of their decision-making process. And you have to be very cognizant of what the benefit they're looking for at every step of that decision-making process. And whether in B2C or in pharma patient marketing, it's all about scale and creativity and getting noticed and the emotional appeal and the brand appeal. In B2B, you have to realize there's a little bit of that, but mostly you have to be there at the right time with the right benefit. And people are only buying what CDMOs have to sell at a very rare occasion where their particular project comes to that particular stage. And if you're a few weeks early or a few weeks late, you're out of the game. Not so much so in the B2C space because the consumers are buying that type of stuff much more frequently. And they can buy an extra one if they like something. So you have to be much more disciplined, much more structured, much sharper on your benefits. The other thing people fail to see is that it's much harder to differentiate in the CDMO space, right?
Definitely. I mean, if you walk around the halls of any trade show, everyone is basically saying the same message.
Well, so there are, and it was really funny because I go around and even after 12 years, I'm still surprised there's how many new players there are all the time and why they all sound the same. So there's this proudly CDMO positioning that basically says, we will do whatever you want and we're dedicated to you. And everybody says that, and you go, okay. And then there is I call the Russian roulette or death by bullet point positioning, where you just put everything you do in bullet point. And, everybody's got more or less the same bullet points. And then there is this, fake crowd in white lab coats positioning where, hey, we've got the experts and everybody does that. So that's where it's more difficult because in consumer space, there is more differentiation between the products themselves. There is more ways to emotionally differentiate it. You can say, hey, my product is fun, or my product is safe, or my product is cool. You can't really do that in the B2B space. So you have to really come up with a benefit. And everybody comes up with the same benefit. And unless you get yourself a very experienced marketer and a good agency, and you really, really hold yourself to a higher standard, you're going to sound like everyone else. And I always used to say to my team, guys, I don't pay you for easy. Easy, I can do myself with a cup of coffee, right? I hired all of you guys. I'm paying a team. I'm paying the agency. I pay you to make the difficult things work, which is go make commercial packaging, to pick on the difficult subject, sound different. And that's tough, but you have to do it. You have to delve deeper into the customer benefits of your particular services, or the history of the company, or the different factors about that company, or whatever it is that make the potential customers look at you at the right time and remember you just the right time when you have an RFP. Because if they don't remember you for that 1 week, you just wasted all your effort.
So there's still value then in brands and branding.
Absolutely. Look at it this way. So ROI and marketing is very different. And ROI tracing in the B2B space like we have is extremely difficult because it's in the hand of the sales force. They don't follow the CRM process very well. There are multiple stakeholders. It goes between one person that you found for a lead and eventually to another person who signs it and another person who decides. So the attribution is very different. However, the one thing I know for sure is that the ROI of the potential customer who knows nothing about you is zero. They're not going to put you on the list. They're not going to give you an RFP. They're going to buy nothing from you. So you have to be now. Secondly, people always make a mistake of saying, okay, no, it's all about the service, the capacity, the quality, the regulatory. It is not. Those are the validation factors later. The first thing that you have to, the your brand has to stand in the mind of that particular potential customer. These guys can help me with my precious baby molecule on these particular things in a credible way. So that when you come to them, the sales team comes to them, when they have an RFP to think about, they go, oh, those guys, right?
Yeah.
If they don't know who you are or what you can help them or don't trust you with that molecule, they don't care what your quality is, capabilities, capacity is, where you are, how much you cost. None of that is important. You got to get on an initial list. And then it is your sales team, and more importantly, your expert team, either the science team or the operations manufacturing team, will make the difference. They'll come to you, and that's a marketing job. And then they go, okay, do you have regulatory quality capacity? Yes or no? No, you're off the list. Yes, you're on the list. And then you're down to the last three people, and the last decision is going to be, who can I trust my baby molecule with? Almost like picking a kindergarten or a private school, right? Do I trust my child over here? Is that clean? Will they not poison them with their food? Is the headmaster reasonable? They're going to teach them something I want and not something I don't. Can I leave it here because that's my hopes and dreams? In this case, people stake their entire lives working on one or two molecules. That's their hope to cure the world and to make $1 billion, right? So if they don't trust you, they won't leave it. So the marketing bit is they have to have that brand image that is like that, and then they have to come to you. After that, it's your expert team that has to convince them of that, no matter marketing will. I always say that B2C space, the marketing team is on the field playing, and the sales team is out there in the booth selling tickets at the end of it, In the B2B space, it's the sales team on the field playing, and the marketing team is on the sidelines yelling that way, right? And that's the job, and it's difficult.
Yeah. Who is doing it well, would you say, given that complexity? I mean, do any brands currently spring to mind as saying, oh, yeah, that's a really smart brand positioning or really clever content campaign? Anything that springs to mind?
There is no coincidence when people say you can't get fired from buying from IBM. So the original IBM positioning of the brand you can trust, right? I always said, to an extent, try to build it at Catalent, say, look, you can't get fired from buying from the leader. And we try to position and behave like that leader, even if we weren't, which worked fine when we actually entered new markets and were positioned as leaders, even if we're just fairly new in that segment. If you look at IQVIA or IMS Health, that's an interesting case study, right? IMS Health always stood in a space like the kind of the brand with the data and kind of the golden standard that you could go to. And I think they've done a decent job rebranding to IQVIA. That's always a very hard transition. But you kind of like now people say, oh, the IQVIA data. And I think the branding with IQ in it was quite clever on that front. That has been a good example. In services, Anderson Consulting has always done a really, really great job. Okay. Because most consultants always say the same thing. But Anderson and McKinsey do a better job in putting out content and behaving like thought leaders, which is what people buy consulting for. So you really need to kind of identify what is it that you want your brand mind space to occupy, right? IQVIA is gold standard in data. IBM is the safe choice in technology. McKinsey is the thought leadership, right? And Catalent, I always tried for kind of the undisputed leader in technology and manufacturing scale that you can really leave your baby molecule with and get to market faster and with less risk. Those are the types of things. And a lot of other people get lost in the middle ground of, okay, we do the service or we do the manufacturing right, and it doesn't stand out. So you got to find an angle. Yeah,
I like this theme about baby molecules and with your background in pregnancy and how drug development in a way is a form of gestation of this baby molecule as it goes through the pipeline. One of the things obviously you have to do in that pregnancy space is to identify and target women, always a new pipeline of women, and you have to target them at just the right moment. How do you do that when it comes to targeting the right people as they're working through the drug development process?
Well, that is an excellent analogy, and that's where it does work. So when I was with Johnson's, human biology, despite recent claims to the diversity of it, is very, very standard. So a baby will need something at about the same time everywhere around the world, right? And then they sleep in a certain way, and they go to sleep in a certain way, and they wake up, and then they have hair, they don't have hair. So it's very specific. The same thing actually is true in pharma for the molecule, right? There are very specific stages about when the customer needs very specific things. Sometimes they just need data. Sometimes they need a gram of API. Sometimes they need a ton of API and a billion doses. And all of that is to some extent predictable. But it's much harder to target because pregnant women tend to self-identify, right? And the pharma guys don't, right? They work on multiple projects, and there's a lot of privacy and confidentiality and secrecy and so on. So I think that the key thing is to make your benefit apparent and make your content very helpful and impressive to a particular group of customers at a particular time. So when you're doing marketing and you're writing your headlines or you're creating content, which is really, really important these days, you always have to keep in mind who exactly you're talking to. You cannot say pharma scientist. Okay, because you need to know, okay, I'm talking to early scientists with these types of molecules whose current challenge is X. Accordingly, my headline is going to say, hey, here's the latest in solving that particular challenge. As they scroll through stuff, they go, oh, how do they know I'm working on? Big Brother, they listen to my conversation with my colleague on the phone. No, you're just going to put out the headline out there. I wish we could, but you put out the headline out there and they go, that's me. And then they will click on it if they really, if that's what they need. And then you can market to them, right? But you have to really have enough content for that stuff, which is difficult to afford cost effectively. That's why I still have this great network of people who write this type of stuff, right? You have to do the way, you know what you're writing, for whom you're writing, when you're writing it, what the headline would be. And more, they have to read it and say, is this helpful and important to that person? Or you're just telling them the basics. They go, oh, I know all that. Why is this guy wasting my time, right?
So it's about mapping your content then across the whole drug development process and making sure it's available, and so that at a time when they need it, it's there.
Well, it's mapping your content to the services you're focusing on selling right now. For most companies, Catalent excluded, the whole process is usually not what they're working on. So you have to say, okay, for the thing that I'm selling, for the buyers, what challenges are they working on, what stage of the process, and I need to have multiple pieces of content for these guys with the right headlines. And then, unfortunately, it's not enough to just have it available like it is in B2C and retail. You have it available, customer comes to the store, goes, oh. If you have a piece of content and they're all on your website, no company comes to your website, it's, the tree falling in the forest, right? Nobody's heard it.
Yeah.
And I always have this discussion with guys, well, we did a webinar. I said, okay, well, how many people came to the webinar? 100. They're like, so 100 people now heard it. What about the rest of them? So you can't just make it available. You have to make it seen by as many people as possible at the right time. So the classic marketing concept of reach and frequency applies very much here. It is just reach and frequency of a very particular subset of audience. And I remember arguing with Facebook way early on in my days. Said, well, we have all women. I said, I don't want all women. I want pregnant women. And they said, well, they're within that. I said, I'm not spending all my money talking to all the 160 million women in the United States when I'm looking for 2 million new moms. Same thing here. I'm not spending my money at CPHI looking for 27 early development scientists. They're not there. They're in some conference room at AAPS, not coming out. Right? So you have to have it available. And unfortunately, that gets expensive. So you need to get somebody really creative, and you need to really focus on the right audience, and you need to create the right content and put it in front of them often enough.
And super targeted with your distribution.
Distribution and social and headlines. And if you're putting it broader, the headline has to be targeted to those people, so you're not wasting money on other people clicking on it, and students and professors and so on. Marketing is old science. People say, well, marketing is my favorite thing, I came out on stage in the Catalent management conference early on, and I said, there is a dirty rumor going around that marketing is all about drinking and guessing. And I said, well, that's definitely true after 3 p.m. But before 3 p.m., there is a particular science to marketing, right? There's a particular math to marketing. If you're not reaching the right number of people enough times, you can multiply the average number of time people see things by the average number of time people click on it, but the average time of that people actually look at what they clicked and read it enough to remember what it is, and by the actual number of times people need to read it to actually remember it much better. That is a whole science. And so oftentimes I look at an opportunity, I go, the math doesn't work. So you've got to do that math, and you've got to do it, be very disciplined. You have to do the more targeted, more cost-effective things first, and then you layer and you layer and you layer. That is very important, and people tend to forget that.
So how does that go down then, that sort of scientific approach, when you're operating in life sciences, and a lot of the senior leadership come from a background in chemistry, biology, come from the world of science? Does that help you be taken seriously at the board table?
Well, yeah, look, so in fact, it operates exactly the same way it operates anywhere else, and that's the science of it, right? You say, okay, what is your company strategy? Next step, what's your marketing strategy? Not the same thing. Because if you're building plans, acquiring companies, or doing some other thing, that's not a marketing problem. Also, if you say, I need to sell these 5 things to J&J, that's not a marketing problem, it's a sales problem. You know who you need to know, go find everybody, have 27 dinners, sell it. If you say, okay, these are my marketing priorities, meaning I need to sell this stuff to multiple people in the industry, then you say, okay, what is our positioning? What is our benefits? What is our proof? Any industry, any target market, what are their challenge? What's our benefit? What are we solving? Then you say, okay, how do we get them to trust us? In this particular industry, that's quality content and introducing them to the quality experts, be it manufacturing experts, science experts, service experts, analytical experts, whatever experts they need to solve their particular problem. They need to create enough quality content so the guys who have the challenge read this and go, whoa, wow, these guys know better than me. We had an expert that used to write articles for us, and people would come to me at the trade show with a tore out article from a magazine and go, is this guy here? I'm going to talk to this guy because this guy will trust, because whatever he just wrote is great. I didn't know that, and I need to know that about my mom. So I said, hey, I don't waste his time taking him to conferences, but I will set you up a personal meeting. That's the gold standard. Now, you don't always get there, but they need to kind of read enough to go, okay, these guys know what they're talking about. They're experts, know more stuff about applied drug development, not discovery necessarily, not the technology that the pharma company think they know better, but kind of about scaling up and getting my molecule to patient and market than I do. So, and then you go, okay, then the next piece of your science is your media, right? What are these people reading? How many of them are reading it? What price am I paying for that media? What am I putting in that media? Is it an awareness tactic? Is it a lead gen tactic? Is it an engagement tactic? Is it a credibility tactic? Right? And then you have to do the math in your head. Wow, I was just talking to one of the providers, and they write very, very credible content. But they're very, very expensive, and their list is very targeted, but very small. So, okay, look, 1 year of that's good, because you can, once they see a couple of pieces, the small list, they get it, but you can't really afford that every year, right? So you go, okay, what is my next option? And you have to kind of create that mosaic, and you have to work with somebody who knows all of those media sources, and who knows all of the prices, and who've had experience working with those things, that and know what the approximate results would be for what type of thing. I benefit. Catalent was one of the largest advertisers for almost all of these things, and contributed content to all of these things. So now, by now, like in the baby space, I've seen every piece of media ever invented, from Disney to Baby Center to Facebook. Here, I've seen every. I was the first advertiser for endpoints, the very first, right? So And that's how you get to know who is good for what purpose and who is worth that money and who's not worth it.
Where would you start if you were advising a small marketing team in the contract manufacturing space, or maybe they don't have any team currently? What would be your advice for someone getting started?
Well, that's what I do now, right? After I've left Catalent, I enjoy my bossless experience a lot. So no politics, no bosses, no ties, and no office to go to. I'm looking out on the ocean over here. And I advise companies that don't have any marketing teams, or they have a very small team and an agency. And so, and then you go through the same process I just laid out to you, and you see what they've got and what they don't. Is your strategy clear? Is your marketing strategy clear? Is it clearly prioritized? Then are you doing the basics? Do you have your positioning? Do you have your benefits? Do you have your proof points? And then, okay, media. Are you doing search properly? Are you doing social properly? Are you doing content properly? And they tend to not be doing at least half of these things because smaller, less experience, not enough money, not enough time, mostly. And then you go, okay, how much money do you have? Let's layer it in layers of most efficient, most targeted, next level. And then when you're out of the budget, you kind of stop and then you get more creative. So you have to go, and there is no matter your size, team, or budget, there is no substitute for doing it right. You're just doing it at a different scale and focus on slightly different things, right? You have to have your strategy, and you have to have your positioning, and you have to have your benefits, and you have to know your audience, and you have to have your proof points. Then you go, okay, how much money do I got, or what can I have? So people say, I don't have money, but I have several experts who love to speak and present and talk and write. Great, you focus on that, and you get that out there, and you put it out there for free, and you publish all kinds of articles, and you get all kinds of speeches, and you just spend a little bit of money to promote all that. If they say, oh, no, I don't have any experts, but I got money, hire the experts, the same thing. When people say, hey, no, I don't have the experts, I don't have a lot of money, but I have a very large sales team, then you focus on targeting and on sales collateral. Instead of doing marketing, you send the sales team to actually physically visit everybody. You just got to have somebody who understands all of these options, have done that, seen that, tried that, to be able to kind of match your strength and capabilities and to compensate and mask for your weaknesses.
Do you ever come across companies where the legal side of the business or the regulatory side of the business makes it so hard to communicate, but it's almost not worth doing any marketing?
All right. Yeah. So at J&J, behind their back, we sometimes call legal the business prevention department.
Right. Yeah.
So there were so many lawyers. I once addressed a legal meeting. I came onto the stage and I saw 150 lawyers, and I know how much they get paid. So I'm like, damn it, now I know where all my SG&A going. I thought they would murder me from their eyes, but I tend to actually get along with lawyers because you have to know what you cannot say because it will land you in jail. And you have to know what you can say, but would have consequences. And then you have to know when they're just editorializing. And a lot of lawyers and regulatory people, when you send them materials, they just mark it up. And they say, wait, I need 3 colors. Red, don't write it, we won't defend you. Blue, you can write it, but you have to know the consequences. Let's talk about them. You can get sued, or you may get forced to remove it, or whatever. And I have the time. I said, don't worry. The minute anybody complains, I'll remove it. And they say, yes, you will? I said, yes, I will. And they say, that's fine then. I'm like, okay. I'll bet you 80% of the edits is that they are just thinking that they know English and can write better than you.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's definitely the case. My friends at Catalent, I use them as a free editing service, right? I'm like, I'm not paying any editors. My lawyers do a great job, and they double check all my grammar. But if I know they're editorializing, I feel free to not accept it, and I don't have to explain.
Okay.
So the good news is in the CDMO services space, you're typically not subject to the FDA regulation on your advertising. Yep. If you're doing B2B stuff and you're not talking about any of the side effects, any of the clinical outputs, or any of the clinical benefits, You talk about the benefit of your technology or your services or your science to creation thereof. Accordingly, that keeps you out of the FDA purview. And that's what you have to get really aligned on the lawyers. And whose regulatory thing are we worrying about? For what reason? What can we say and what we cannot say? And who it is it we can say, cannot say. So if you stay away from the FDA regulated language and you stay away from marketing to healthcare professionals, subject to the Sunshine Act in the US and the equivalent or elsewhere, right? Then you are pretty flexible on what you can or cannot say. You should have proof of your claims. If you say you're the fastest, you should have some proof on file. If you say you are the broadest technology, the biggest technology, the best technology, whatever, you should always have some proof to it to discuss with customers or whoever complains, because otherwise you lose your credibility really quickly, and you have to not make claims that are, for example, companies love to say, we are a leader in blah, blah, blah. And they use the word a leader because they can't say the leader, which they have to prove. But I say, look, guys, you're 10 million in sales. You are no leader of no kind. Do not say it. You make yourself look bad. People know you're small. You're not a leader. So you say, you can say we have the best experts in this. Okay. As my friend used to say, if you're not published, you're not an expert. So you have to prove it and say, hey, look, there's the guy who writes all these articles and presents all these conferences. He's the worldwide expert. And we had a guy in extractables and leachables, But people who need extractable and leachables go look at that stuff and go, wow, that's the guy.
Yeah, he's the number one in that.
Right. But if you say, I am the biggest API producer in the universe and you are a small company, then what the heck are you saying? You're not a leader. But if you say, look, I am the fastest from a milligram to a kilogram, and you can show that is a more important thing for the customers that you are serving. And there's the more interesting benefit, and you can actually prove it, and they may actually be believed.
Yeah, we're hurtling towards 2024 at the moment. What's exciting for you, Elliott? I mean, you personally, because you're with Orientation at the moment, so presumably you're working on some new projects yourself, but also in terms of some of the marketing trends which others can grapple with.
That's an interesting question. So I am a director at Orientation, among other things. I also do fractional marketing, do fractional CMO, Chief Marketing Officer assignments for a number of people. Also do a lot of consulting for the private equity industry, who is buying and selling and transforming in the space. Look, I'm excited for 2024. The industry appears to be in better shape. The PE funding has revitalized the industry. There's a lot of PE funding around and available for those that want to get funded. There is more, finally, VC funding is coming back to life for our customers. Not at a really frothy 2021 levels, but, that was a bit unsustainable, and some stuff was getting financed that shouldn't be really have been financed. But, quality science will be financed, and successful products out of clinical will be financed. So I think there is more benefit there. And I think, the exciting new modalities that are becoming more mature, gene therapies and cell therapies, and then maybe the new phase in terms of exosomes or microbiomes or protein degraders or whatever. All of these modalities provide a lot of opportunities for CDMOs. Pharma companies can't be experts in all of that and can't be expected to be building capabilities and expertise and all that.
For sure.
And all of those things are more complicated and sophisticated. So there's a lot more opportunity for the scientific expertise and analytical and all that kind of service to support those modalities and those customers. And for marketers, obviously, then there's more opportunity to try to differentiate, establish and position brands in those new and emerging spaces, which aren't really occupied by others, and to create the relevant content and the brilliant marketing campaigns to get providers to stand out in that category.
Are you seeing any changes in terms of marketing channels that marketers could use to hit this B2B audience?
Yeah, so it's really funny. I was talking to a marketer from a B2C space that just came around and took a senior marketing position in the B2B space in the CDM, bigger CDMO. And she's like, I don't understand. This is a little bit traditional, the word she used. Mm-hmm. I said, haha, my friend, welcome back to 1999, right? The CDMO space and the pharma space, very conservative. There isn't opportunity to do TikToks and addressable cable advertising by picking out people in the cable industry that have babies and running the commercial just to them. There's all of these very sophisticated targeting and programmatic and all that stuff that you can do in B2B that you can't really do in B2C effectively. But you can do a number of creative things that you can borrow from those things and bring to B2B environment, depending on how much money and expertise and people you got. But I'm not going to tell you those because you got to hire me to get those results because there's got to be some secret sauce.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was hoping for, Elliott. Yeah. Great. Well, I think that's a nice end to the interview. So if you want to find out any of Elliott's secrets, how can people get hold of you?
Oh, it's easy. Find me on LinkedIn. Send me a message. Also, people say, why are you still on Hotmail? I said, because I've got Elliott Berger at hotmail.com, and I'm never giving that up. As long as you remember it's 2 L's and 2 T's, that's my email forever, because you go anywhere else on Google, you'll be Elliott-Berger 2730, whatever.
Okay, well, yeah, that's how to get hold of you.
Well, thank you very much. I really enjoyed our chat. It's not often in this industry you can chat sophisticated marketing topics with somebody, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's really fun. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Elliott. See you soon.
Okay, cheers.
Finally, we're excited to tell you about PartnerMatch, which is a brand new service from us at PharmaSource. PartnerMatch is a new online meeting platform designed to be the most targeted, efficient, and sustainable way to connect with pre-approved partners in key areas such as APIs, packaging, supply chain, contract manufacturing, and CROs. We believe that by creating better, faster matches, PartnerMatch can directly contribute to accelerating the rollout of groundbreaking therapies. Get involved by heading to pharmasource.global/partnermatch. Thank you for listening.